Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. And of course, a warm welcome to anyone who's new. Boy, if you're new, you're jumping into the middle of something crazy. I'll tell you that. We've had quite an interesting set of readings really across these last few weeks. It's been just a lot of energy, And so, of course, it makes sense to look at what sources of a lot of that energy might be. So part of it is we know that there's some astrological events that are happening that could give us some of what we're seeing here. So we know we've got this Venus retrograde that's kind of causing people to do a little bit more of internal reconciliation and kind of bringing themselves back to themselves. Not only that, but we had a full moon here about a week ago that was I think it was a week ago, that was very much bringing you back to the person that you are. So it's like a double whammy there. And now we have what's called Lionsgate. So I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Lionsgate. I'm going to greatly simplify it to say that it's August 8th. And that's why we're going to kind of look into the energies of it today in this Soulmate Snapshot. We're not going to do an extended or anything, too far beyond that, but just to kind of see what's happening with it, because a lot of times I ignore things like this. But I felt like the energy is overwhelming at this time, and it just makes sense maybe to kind of look into it a little bit more. So it's a time of high cosmic energy, part of why we're seeing what we're seeing. It's a time of intensity, but it's also a time of big shifts. And we already know that for the month of August, and we've already seen evidence of that energy kind of come in. So we're just going to take a look at it again. And it's the energy of, or we're going to look at the energy of Lionsgate as it specifically relates to what's happening with this collective right now. It is a general reading for this collective, so if you find that it resonates with you, you might want to subscribe, and you might want to check out some of the other readings. Those of you who watched the extended yesterday saw one of these cards try to jump out totally from like off stage over here, and and so I figured I would go ahead and use this card, that deck in here. That's going to be the one that talks, and here this is going to be the deck that starts us out. So we're going to go ahead and start out by looking at just what the energies are today and what is happening in the surrounding what's happening in the energies around us. What are we swimming in? What is the energetic weather, energetic and emotional backdrop? I like that we put emotional into this. So it used to be the energetic backdrop, and you would sometimes get emotions in there. But I feel that when we ask the question with the emotions in the question, that it comes out a little bit better. So we've got the King of Swords, but in the reverse. And this is kind of that feeling of a reluctance to look at the big picture, because possibly maybe even of a fear of what you might see. It feels like it's too intense to be taken in all at one time. There's some element of a great amount of intensity happening here. So let's see what else comes out in today's energy. We have transformation occurring. Transformation, but it feels like it's occurring at like when I first looked at this, it looked like she was sitting in like a crucible that you might put over a Bunsen burner, and the type of transformation that occurs there is the kind that you don't go back on, you don't come back from. You become something very different from what you were before. It's a chemical reaction and not a physical one. This is something that changes. It's like when you get something wet and you can just dry it out, that's a physical reaction. When you burn something and it becomes cinders, that's a chemical reaction. It can't be undone. This type of transformation feels like it can't be undone. So we've got Six of Spears. It's not a quiet time of transformation, and not a time where it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to be successful. There's there's a fear here of maybe even a lack of success, and maybe knowing there's a temptation energy here that's coming. Feels like there's a threat to your day to day, and by day to day I mean it's potentially the household, it's potentially your way of life. It's something that you should definitely take a closer look at, though. So this temptation, maybe make sure that you're looking at it for the right reasons, or if you've got something that you think is tempting you or bringing you into a place of, this feels a little bit like obsessive thinking with the temptation card. It's like the devil energy. If you feel like that's if you feel like that's kind of happening, take a look at what you're doing and then back off to see why you're doing it. Now, there's a reluctance to do that with this King of Swords energy, but it's definitely something that's going to benefit you, because it may be that there's a need for a change to your environment. And I could be talking to you or your divine masculine. This is honestly very much shared energy. So your person is going through something very similar, but there's not that feeling of, like I said, a foregone conclusion of success. Now, I feel like you're shortchanging yourselves, both of you, but the path may simply not be an easy one, and it certainly doesn't look like it's a quiet one over here. So we talked about changing things potentially, and it's because there may be a need to move into a more positive environment for what you need now. And so what you've got to do to get to that place is turn this King of Swords into the upright, and which is what you've got here. You've got the Nine of Cups, Nine of Teacups, which is about happiness. It's about finding that thing that makes you happy, the circumstances that make you happy. There's something in today's uncomfortable, intense energy that wants to thrust you toward what it is that you feel, or that would be your wish fulfillment. The problem is you may not feel ready to move toward it as quickly as you might feel like you're being thrust toward it. Now, that one sounds like it's potentially a little bit more oriented. It's a piece of advice that would be a little bit more oriented toward your person, but make sure you take it for yourself too. If there's something that you feel like you're being catapulted toward, and you know it's a good thing for you to do, but you kind of don't feel like it, like, just take another look at it. Don't do anything silly. We've seen that in recent readings. There's something that you could potentially be tucked into that you might have some passion for, but you know it's the wrong thing to do. You have some degree of masculine balance at this time. It's not control. It's not even a need for control, as a matter of fact. It's kind of this realization that things are already pushed in your direction. They're already kind of going to go your way. And there's also this feeling that you have some, ultimately, if things seem like they are failing, because you don't have that automatic sense of success, if things feel like they are failing, you feel like you could just kind of sweep in and fix it. So that's an interesting kind of balance between the Magician and the Emperor, because the Magician is almost a little bit on the arrogant side in the way that it's coming out here. The Emperor is not, especially. It's more balanced and just kind of trusting. And so this is an energy of there's just a lot to it. It's thick threads of the energy coming through. Let's look to see what else you need to know about Lionsgate with regard to these high intensity shifts. We've got the energy of it being super intense and ready for shifts, but you might be a little concerned about them. Now let's get into what those shifts might look like and what you might be looking for, because we've been seeing this come out in readings for the last week as we've been looking at some of the just the energy as it comes out. It's, as we looked at August, it was, there's going to be significant change, but maybe you're not going to find it especially comfortable. Don't worry, it's going to be for the better, and you're going to look really graceful doing it, and I remember saying that and thinking, I'm not sure how reassuring that truly how reassuring it truly is. So we've got the Hanged Man here, and then we've got the World in reverse. Okay, There is a new perspective, but something is yet undecided with the Hanged Man. With the world in reverse, this is something incomplete. So there's not enough information here to make a decision. And I do understand that I am dealing with a group of people who is particularly adept at making decisions with incomplete information. But this is actually not enough. Like, you can't tell what the options are in this. So it's very much a waiting. There's this swelling of the energy waiting for the rest of that information to present itself so that you can see. You guys keep getting this this decision card, and you guys are going to get to see kind of what is on the path and what is not on the path. All right, so the star talks about what's on the path. The pair talks about whether or not you're going to feel like you have a choice about it. That's the pair is like the Lover's card, which is like the choice card. It's really about, do you have a choice in moving forward with the options that you might otherwise most want? The thing that constitutes your Nine of Cups, your Nine of Teacups over here, there's a reason that you're afraid, or that they're afraid it's going to create a change to the household. What happens there? Does it really come down to there doesn't feel like there's much choice about this? And yet there's the star talking about the feeling of destiny. How do you reconcile that? This is a time for having to come together to kind of reconcile that. And we've seen some evidence of this being particularly difficult. I had a soulmate snapshot whenever I did that thank you reading, and this is a little while ago now, but I did a thank you reading at the end of July, and there was, when I got done doing it, there were these emails in my inbox that said, hey, I've made this terrible mistake. And it seemed, because they had reached out. Well, it turns out that it's not a terrible mistake, but they were catching their person at what might be kind of a rough time. This is knowing that destiny is there, but maybe being at that rough time, you know. So we've got the Tower card, but in reverse. This is like a sneeze that you have to make, but it's not happening. This is what this reminds me of. That energy that's swelling, but it's not being released. The Tower in reverse is not necessarily a resistance to a change. It's not having all the information to move forward. It's not having the path lit yet. So we can see that is coming clear with the star here. But it also seems like immediately a reset is going to be required, because we see the pair in reverse. Immediately we see, okay, so what you might think of as your first choice is maybe not an option at this time for one reason or another, but it doesn't mean it's never an option. That's another thing. What does it look like to build that path? Okay, so we've got the Knight of Teacups, which is honestly the entertainment of what it would take to build that path. It's a very creative way of looking at a situation. And here is that realization that you've got a situation to get creative with. That's kind of the energy that you have here as this energy swells. And the Lionsgate energy is known for just being an awful lot through a pinhole, you know. And I remember the first time I ever experienced it, I wasn't out on YouTube at the time. It was a couple years ago, actually, and the first time I had no idea that there was a Lionsgate. I looked afterwards to say, like, what was that? It was one of the most intense meditations of my life, and as I looked into it, I realized, okay, so I'm not sold on this, but this is exactly what I experienced. And then I noticed that it was pretty consistent, and I'm feeling it again, but this time I'm like, all right, you know what, this does ultimately resolve. What do we need to know about it? And what we see is there is a crossroads that is implied here. You don't have the information to go down it, but it feels like you're raring to go. It feels like that's kind of what needs to happen next, and you're very aware of it. Okay, let's see what else. What else do you need to know about this Lionsgate portal energy? Because it opens up about August 8th And then, but the thing is, the energy, it kind of bleeds out both directions, kind of like the moon energy does. So we've already been feeling some of the intensity, and we're likely to continue doing so. But I'm curious to see the resolution, because I get the sense there will be one. And it's going to be, so I've said this about the Temperance card before, but the Temperance card sometimes reminds me of being on like a tightrope. This is the feeling of that tightrope turning into a sidewalk and becoming very stable for you. That's also how I would describe my meditation and getting into that meditative state. Okay, so for a 10 of teacups, this is quite a time for you to be running across something that's really going to get your attention, but I think you're going to run across something that gets your attention. You're going to be reminded of something that makes you sad. It is not necessarily related to your person. It could be you lost a pet and you see a pet that looks very similar, but I think it's not exactly that. I think it's a little bit more here and now, kind of reminding you, and you have to figure out exactly what to do about it. But I feel like you get there. This is that 8 of teacups, and when I talked about finding the path directly, or finding the path through, it's that 8 of teacups energy that helps you to really do that, to find that path through. So there's a lot of energy that happens here. You get almost triggered. I don't know that trigger is the right word for this, but it feels like you're not quite ready for it, or you're not quite developed, and almost immediately what you've learned already along this path of your healing jumps in and starts to illuminate the situation for you. So that's powerful, but you're going to be geared up for this kind of power because you're already living in it. You're already kind of moving around in it. So there are definitely places where things I'm not going to say they're going to go wrong. I could say that there are going to be if then, there are going to be logic kind of turns that you need to make. And if you make the right turns, you're going to do better. If you make the wrong turns, it's going to take longer. You're in a series of that. And I think that's why we keep seeing that 2 of Swords energy come out for you. And I've noticed it as a cycle, but I noticed it as like a repetitive one. And it's just, but it's not necessarily repetitive. It's like you have to get to some place that's located in a strange place, and you actually just have to make a bunch of left turns. It's that kind of strange energy to it. You're just getting to a place where there are a lot of crossroads. This is something that's going to change the way that you approach crossroads, though, because it's that illumination that you bring with you that's going to be that additional information that you need to enable this change and to move forward. So let's get you a little bit of advice on what this means for you. I don't know what I expected to come out for the Lionsgate portal. I don't know that it was this. Let's see what fell. A card fall, but it is face down. So we have the moon. There are mysteries coming out for you that are going to help to illuminate once again the directions that you need to go. Make the best of them. That's the advice that seems to want to come out with this card. You've got the King of Flowers. There's a sense of you not being arrogant, but very much owning this. And it's a good feeling because you're balanced going into it, and you have a sense of what balance is, what you want, and how to attain it. There's a very confident kind of feeling there with this Justice card that I really like the way that feels, but I think it's because it's buoyed up by that King of Flowers. What did I drop? That's a lot of cards that I keep dropping today. So we've got the Page of Hedgehogs. Page of Hedgehogs is like the Page of Earth energy, so it's like the Page of Coins or the Page of Pentacles. This is a lesson that you're still very much working to learn. It is not something, this is a great time for you to jump into it because you're going to find yourself less likely to overthink, but it's not going to make this decision that you're trying to make any easier. You've got this door that is opening up for you as an opportunity. This is a time for you to take it. You have excellent energy for taking it, and just kind of almost, you could swish through the keyhole. You've got this, that's a super weird thing. I don't know if that means anything to anybody. This is kind of going with the flow, but it's just this door is opening for you, but it's like you could just kind of go on in there, ease your way in very easily, because it is the right place for you to be. So there's an opportunity that's opening for you that's going to be a really great place for you to be. Watch out for an inability to form quick bonds in a place that you usually think you should be able to. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit longer, but this also might be one of those things that we've seen come up where you are confronted with something that this injury, this heart injury, this injury to your ability to give and receive love as easily. It's a vulnerability issue, and you're going to be able to overcome it fairly quickly as soon as you step back and take a look at what's happening in the situation. You step back, you'll be able to take a look at it. This is kind of the energy of what you're being told to do today anyway, to take a look at that energy, and you're going to be able to say, hold on, this isn't really how I want to handle this, and you will be able to save the situation before it becomes a problem. So I feel like this is pretty positive, but it's a lot of energy coming your direction with the Lionsgate portal. I'm going to get back in and do some meditations, and if it seems like it, I'll bring out some more of the concepts in tomorrow's reading, because I'm sure some of the energy will still be there. But I think I want to dip back into the inbox for some questions, because we've got some pretty urgent questions I haven't yet had an opportunity to answer. So we'll go ahead and get into that for some of these future readings. So thanks for being here with me with this Soulmate Snapshot. I'll see you again tomorrow.